Good afternoon and welcome to a special edition of NYFP. Here at the Nasdaq market site, I'm joined by the co-founders of Nextdoor. Nextdoor is a private social network for neighborhoods. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Well, in this day and age, a lot of us are connected online, but we're not connected to our neighbors. So can you tell me how Nextdoor helps to connect neighborhoods?
Sure, and the exact statistic is that in America, 28% of Americans don't know a single neighbor by name, and only about 30% of Americans know a few of their neighbors. So it is the case that for whatever reason, we have lost touch with our neighbors, and we believe that Nextdoor can change that. Sarah?
Well, people use Facebook as a way to connect with friends and family around the globe, and they use LinkedIn to keep track of their business connections, but we felt like there was something missing, that people didn't have an easy way to communicate with the people who live right down the street, and that was really the inspiration for Nextdoor.
And I'm very curious, you said that you've known each other for over a decade, so can you tell me how you guys got together and the inspiration behind this network?
We probably don't have enough time to talk about how we know each other. No, I'm just kidding. We have worked together for 14 years on 3 different technology companies. We met after Sarah had finished business school at Harvard, and I was starting a company in 1999 called Opinions. And Sarah was one of the first employees that was hired for that company, and she has stuck with me since then, and we've been very lucky to have done many interesting things together in the business world. And starting this company was a little different, though, because now that we are a little older, now that we are a little bit more experienced, we felt like we had put down roots in our own neighborhoods, yet there wasn't a technology solution that would make it easy for us to connect with the other people that we lived around. And that was the inspiration for Nextdoor.
It was really an opportunity to take all that experience that we had had in building online communities and apply it to the real world in a situation that was highly relevant to us. An opportunity to work together and work with some colleagues that we'd worked with previously. So it was kind of the perfect opportunity to combine forces and start Nextdoor.
And I'm curious about how this Nextdoor network works. So if you're a member, and I understand there's a very strenuous verification process, how exactly do they connect, and what kind of categories are there in this network?
Well, there are some things about Nextdoor that are almost identical to other social networks out there. So it's free to use for all members. It's easy to join. You don't have to do much except for come to the website. But where it differs is there is a big focus on privacy. And privacy is important because when you're communicating with your neighbors, you want to make sure that only your neighbors are privy to those conversations. And so when you join Nextdoor, you do have to enter your physical address, and then you have to verify that you actually live at that address. And we do that for you for free. There are many different ways that you can choose to do it. You can wait for us to send you a postcard, or you can actually have us call your home phone number with a specific code. But it's free for you, and you will recognize the user interface because we use all the best practices of other social networking sites. But ultimately, it's about connecting and communicating with your neighbors to solve problems in your local area, whether it's finding a great babysitter recommendation, selling a used pair of skis, asking for help in finding a lost pet, or more critical things like reporting on severe weather that's coming into the area, or thinking about how to make the neighborhood safer.
I think one of the key things is that the result is that you have a private network, a place where you have a trusted community where you can communicate about the things that matter. It turns out about 20% of people upload information about their family and their children, and they do that because they trust the community that forms on Nextdoor.
And I think that is important not just to your consumer base, but also to yourselves too, since you use it. But since you mentioned a severe weather, I understand that you recently struck a partnership with New York City. So could you tell me a little bit about that partnership?
Sure. We started the company based on the premise that when neighbors start talking, good things happen. And we have over 15,000 neighborhoods in 50 states that are using Nextdoor, and so we've seen that up close and personal. One of the biggest use cases has been helping neighborhoods get stronger and safer during times of crisis. And our members came to us and said, you know, during these times of severe weather or natural disaster or suspicious activity, it would be great to integrate the police department, the fire department, the offices of emergency management. And so about a year ago, we started to integrate city services in many, many different cities into Nextdoor. We have over 100 partnerships, and just a few weeks ago, we were lucky to get New York City to agree to use Nextdoor as an official communications vehicle as well.
And regarding market penetration, can you tell me a little bit about that? And I'm interested in the funding, so can you tell me a little bit about your funding and the backers?
Yeah, we think about it on a city-by-city basis, and as we focus on individual cities, you see our market penetration goes from 0 to, in San Francisco, a place that we've had a lot of market penetration, 97% of the neighborhoods are using Nextdoor. We see this type of penetration also in places like Denver and San Diego, Chicago, and Dallas and Seattle, and so we're excited to put down the roots here in New York and see that same type of penetration as we roll out.
It turns out that neighborhoods of all shapes and sizes can use Nextdoor. Many people think initially this is just for the suburbs. It's not. It's for great cities like New York City and San Francisco and Chicago. It's not for urban areas in general. I mean, there are rural areas like Hamilton, New York, where Nextdoor is very popular. That's actually a farm-based area as well. And so it turns out that if you've put down roots, if you believe in your neighborhood, if you want to get together with your neighbors to solve problems, Nextdoor is a great tool. In terms of funding, we've been very fortunate. We are funded by some of the best investors in Silicon Valley, Benchmark Capital, Greylock Partners, Google Ventures, Bezos Expeditions, which is the investment arm of Jeff Bezos. And over the last year, we've raised $40 million. And so our investors feel like us that this is a very large and meaningful opportunity, and we're trying to make sure that we're sufficiently resourced to go against the opportunity.
And that does bring me to my last and final question. This interview will be aired across the country as well as the world. And what if there is somebody living in an extremely distant area that's considered rural and they don't have Nextdoor? Can they start a network on their own?
In the United States, Nextdoor is available to everyone, no matter where you live. So whether it's a remote area or whether it's a very, very popular one, you can actually get to use Nextdoor immediately just by going to Nextdoor.com. Internationally, we have plans to launch Nextdoor at the end of this year, 2013, and then into 2014, first in English-speaking countries and then the rest of the world. We believe that the notion of communicating with neighbors, building stronger local communities, that's not something that is limited to the United States only. That's a universal value proposition, and we expect to expand very quickly internationally.
And it's easy in the United States. Just simply go to nextdoor.com, put in your address, and if there's a Nextdoor neighborhood up and running, join it, or you can be the one that brings it to your own community.
Okay, Sarah, Nirav, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon at the NASDAQ, and thanks for sharing your story with us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.